Um, I will tell you, people say some of you know me, some of you don't, but the first thing that you've got to find out is what is your why and why are you doing what you're doing? Where are you going? I will tell you my big why for passive and residual income, because I'm going to talk mostly about attraction. In fact, I think probably all about attraction. Um, is the fact that I'm a cancer survivor. And when I was initially with Coldwell Banker. I got my license with Coldwell Banker in the beginning, and thought I was doing really, really great, at the time, and enjoyed it. Loved real estate. Had just gotten out of the Navy, and I couldn't believe the money I was making compared to the money that I was when I was, in the Navy. And then I discovered that I had cancer, went into the hospital and spent 4 or 5 years in and out of hospitals, could not work, could not sell, could not go out and work. And I realized then that everything was based on my ability to perform. I had no passive and residual. And it was during that time in the hospital that I thought, when I get through this, and I never thought I wouldn't get through it. I always thought I would. I just didn't know how far. The doctors had told me I probably should get my affairs in order just in case, which is a really scary thing if you're in the hospital and they said you've got cancer and you probably should get your affairs in order. Doesn't make you feel like it's a happy day, I have to tell you. And so I had made the decision that I was going to develop a passive income stream out of protection. I didn't know if this cancer would come back. Um, and but the chances of cancer coming back is very high, as most of you know, and the different types of cancer. And I then was just totally interested in developing a passive and residual income, especially if I could pass it on to my family. And again, so if the cancer came back, whatever I knew that I built in RevShare would be um, willable, transferable, and would continue on past me. So my goal was to make $100,000 a year. And I first did that with a company called Keller Williams, because that was in 1997, before EXP was even a dream in Glenn's eye. And the most anyone had ever made at Keller after 16 years was $50,000 in passive, their profit sharing system, and I needed twice that, 100,000. And I only tell you this story to tell you what drove me and where my mindset was at. Okay, and so I flew to Austin, Texas. I took the initiative, which is a very big thing because a lot of people don't want to take the time out of their day to find out about an opportunity or not. And it's not that there aren't a lot of opportunities and opportunities knocking. Most people let the different opportunities that come by in their life pass them by. Your mind has got to be ready for an opportunity to be able to understand it and go with it, believe in it, and build it. And that's exactly what I did. So I flew from Arizona to Austin, Texas at my own nickel. I stayed with a lady named Althea Osborne, who at the time, if any of you are Keller Williams people, passed. Um, she was the number one profit sharing earner in the company. She'd been with the company almost 16 years. And one of the questions that I asked her was how many people she had personally sponsored, or personally referred, or personally recruited, whatever word you want to use. I just talk about sharing an opportunity. I've got something I've got to share with you. It's very exciting to me. I hope it's exciting to you, but if it's not, that's fine. Because I said I'm only looking for people who are looking for us. And I don't know that, and they don't know that until they see what us is. And once they know what us is, now they can make a choice. Until then, they're living, in my opinion, on bad or old information. So I asked her how many people she'd personally enrolled in those 16 years to get to 50,000. And we looked in the computer, and it turned out she'd personally enrolled 12, not even one a year. And I thought, wow, she's not a massive recruiter or, that type of thing. And I said, why? And she said, well, at the time when they started building it, they didn't know where it was going to go. They didn't know to what size it was going to be. It was just all a thought. It was a hope. It was a dream. And so she said, it was never part of my business plan. I was just interested in listing and selling houses, and it was never part of my business plan. And I only talked to people when they asked me about it in the early days. And then later on, I started being more active, but it just was never part of my business plan. So I thought in my head, what if someone were to make it part of their business plan? Not the whole thing, not the only thing they did, but part of their business plan. So I went back to Arizona, and this was my whole plan. When I left a company called Realty Executives, which was a 100% company, we paid about $10,000 a year. I think we paid 800 a month to be at that company, 10 grand a year. And uh, I, my business goal was to list two houses a month. And in order to list two houses a month, because that was right now money, listings and selling real estate is right now money, paying the bills. I wanted to list two houses a month. And my numbers, because I wasn't the best, I was okay. I wasn't superstar like some people are. Um, I had to have 10 listing appointments to get two listings. And I know those are my numbers. And so I knew that I had to get at least 10 listing appointments to hit my goal of having two listings. And I knew because of past experience, if it got a listing that was priced right and looked nice and looked sharp and didn't have a very difficult seller, most likely it would sell and we would earn a commission. And so that was in my head. Get listings means commission. The next thing I said I want to do is I want to enroll two agents a month. Why is that? Because Althea had 12 agents, and I said, what could make it $100,000 a year in their system? And so I thought if I can, and they had a vesting period of 3 years, just like we have a vesting period of 3 years at EXP. And so I said, well, if I'm going to be there for 3 years, that was my goal, then I want to enroll, sponsor, recruit, whatever you want to call it, two agents a month for 3 years, 36 months, 72 agents, 6 times as many agents as Althea personally enrolled. And I figured that has got to make it to 100,000. That was as deep as my research went. So I said, is it possible that I could do 10 listing appointments and 10 agent appointments a month? Of course it is. It was I could do that in 1 week if I scheduled it. I could do two a day, two listing appointments a day, two agent appointments a day, and be done in 1 week. But I realized that if I just did a little short sprint, little short sprints and not be consistent and persistent, the activity level and the response of the agents was not as high as when I was just consistent. In other words, 2 or 3 presentations a week, just every week. It's what I did. So I'm looking for people who want to buy or sell a house. I'm looking for real estate agents to be able to talk. And in the back of my mind, I said, which one's easier to find? Buyers and sellers or real estate agents? And I thought, well, pretty simply, real estate agents are. I mean, they have signs on their car. They have cell phones. They've got marketing that says, call me 24/7, use me, abuse me, whatever you have to do, get in touch with me, that kind of thing. And I jokingly said, I look at real estate agents as sort of very much like ants. And what I mean that is, if you follow an ant long enough, it will go back to the nest, and there's a whole bunch of them, just like real estate agents. If you find a real estate agent and follow it, eventually it will go to the nest, which we call a real estate office, and then there's lots of them. And there are in this country right now 3 million real estate agents. 3 million real estate agents, right? And at EXP, we've got somewhere between 80 and 90,000 agents overall. 80 and 90,000. And so I started showing the presentation to people, and I asked a series of questions to agents and to say, listen, I'm considering making some major changes in my life, in my real estate career. I want to run some ideas by you and get your feedback. You can punch holes in them. You can give me ideas and talk, but I'd like to talk with you for about 15 or 20 minutes if that's possible. Are you open? Because I respect what you have done. And so they would give me 15 minutes, and I would ask them questions like, what real estate company are you with now? What company were you at before this one? Is this the only one? Most agents have been with a couple. And why did you leave? Did you leave because of something that irritated you, or because the new company had something more that you wanted? So did you move to gain or away from pain? What is it that moved you? Why did you do it? How much longer do you think you're going to be in real estate? Do you have an exit plan? Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone that can line out your um, your 10 plus business. And what does that mean? I would always ask agents on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being awesome, 1 being not so good, what grade would you give your real estate world today, your real estate career? And most agents would say 6 or 7, almost every time. They'd just say 6 or 7. And I say, well, what would make it a 10? You have a 6 or 7, that's cool. What would make it a 10? And they would tell me that. And most of the time it was, I want to sell a few more houses. And I said, well, that sounds like you just want to work more. But is that what you want? And they said, no. I said, well, what does selling more houses mean to you? It means more money. I said, no. So in other words, what you really are saying is you want more money. You don't necessarily want to work harder. You just assume that you have to or work more. I can say that I have a mentor that has showed me a way that I don't have to work harder. I can work just as hard as I ever did, but work smarter. And I could literally double my income over time. And I said, if you don't have a mentor, if you wouldn't be offended, I'd love to have mine give you a call if you wouldn't be offended. And most people would say, no, I wouldn't be offended. Have him give me a call. I said, his first talk is free. There's no charge because everybody thought they'd have to pay a mentor something. So I just let him know right up front, there's no charge for the first initial meeting. He doesn't even know if he'll want to work with you, or he'll just give you some ideas and talk. And they would say, yeah, okay, that'd be fine. Or if they said no, they weren't, because I was looking for the right energy level, right? And so what happened at Keller is I enrolled way more than I ever thought. I enrolled 30 that first year, way more than my goal was. And those 30 through me, they were not interested in recruiting. A lot of people are not. And I said, they said, I just want to sell more houses. And I said, that's cool. But you know people I don't know. And if you'll tee them up, I'll talk to them. And if they decide they want to come aboard, you can be their sponsor. And since I sponsored you, it's a win-win for all of us. And they thought that was a good idea. So those 30 in the first year that I enrolled, they, through them, enrolled another 120. We had 150 agents in the first year. And then next thing you knew, they started bringing in others, and started bringing in others. And my profit sharing went to $5,000 a month. It went to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a month, right? And then I had my 3 years time, 3, 4 years. I think it was 5 years that I was with them. I left and retired, if you will. And I had built a multiple 6-figure residual with their platform. And today, to this day, I am told, I don't have the data to back it up, but I am told that I am the 13th highest paid person still to this day in Keller Williams profit sharing program, right? And which is pretty decent. You know, for many years I was getting $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a month, and you can live pretty nicely with no debt on $20,000, $25,000 a month. I can assure you can. And so then what happened, a few years went by, like 10 or 12, and I ran into Gene Fredrick. And Gene was a friend of mine back from my Keller Williams days. And I'd heard that he'd left Keller. And I said, wow, this is great. Maybe we'll get to travel, do some traveling. Maybe we'll play golf more. Maybe we can do some stuff together, right? And he said, well, yes and no. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've sold all my stuff at Keller, and he had 5 or 6 parts of 5 or 6 offices. He had part of a region, Northern California and Hawaii. And he sold all that. And he said, I'm starting a new real estate project. He said, I think you'd be perfect at. And I said, Gene, I'm a hard no. I said, listen, I worked really hard before. I'm making a few $100,000 a year residual from Keller. I've been getting that for over 20 years, 25 years, I think now, and 26 years maybe. And actually longer than that, because from 1997 to 26 is, so 3, 6, it's almost 30 years. Wow. So the person that asked, am I still getting those checks? Yes, I still am getting them because of the vesting. So I said, well, Gene, and he said, you've just got to see this. Just trust me, it's going to change the way the real estate works. And I said, all right, fine, but no, I am a no. Okay. I mean, you can practice on me, do whatever you like, but I'm a hard no. I'm telling you this because many people that you try to get with are telling you, I'm good. I'm not interested. I'm never going to move. I love my broker. I love my house. I love my parking space. I love my lunch bucket. Whatever it is, they'll come up with some excuse of why not to get together with you because people are just looking for a way to say no on the average masses of people, from what I found, right? So I said, and Gene says, well, let me tell, and I said, so what's in it for me if I was to do this? And so Gene said to me, because this is a virtual company and our revenue share is paid off the top, it's significantly more money than you would make with what we did with Keller. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, he said, I've figured it out, I've done the numbers. And he said, if you do the same thing at EXP as you did at Keller, instead of $300,000 a year, you would make $5 to $10 million a year. And I said, yeah, no way. But all right, fine. Now I'm intrigued. You can show me. And so he got done showing me the presentation, and he did it on napkins at that time. And he about 25, 30 different napkins he was doing. And we were out on his porch, and it was windy, and it was actually raining. And the wind was blowing the napkins all over, so I couldn't put them in order. It was like, I'll never remember. How can I remember the stuff he's telling me to tell anybody? And when we got done and he got done showing me this, I thought, once that you can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It will haunt you. And so I looked at that and I said, Gene, everything you're saying is doable. In the back of my head, I thought, if I don't do this, someone else will. Someone else is going to see this and understand it and grab it and go for it, just like James has done that, and it would just be a matter of time. So I said, all right, I'm going to do the very same thing. So my goal at EXP was the same thing, no different. Here's what I said. I want to come aboard, and my goal of coming sort of out of retirement was to make $500,000 a year in revenue share, right? $500,000 a year in revenue share at EXP. And what I found was in the first three levels, which now everybody automatically gets paid on the first three levels, no matter how many people you have personally enrolled, you get paid in the first three levels. You average right about $1,000 per agent per year in rev share if they close just $1 million worth of real estate a year. 1 million, right? And I don't know what your market is, but what's your average sale price, James, where you guys are?
Right about 400, 425.
Okay, so a million is two houses and a carport, right? You're going to have, that's $1 million. So how many agents out there are selling two houses and a carport? Lots of them, right? A lot more than are selling 10 or 20 or 50 or 100. The masses sell two or three houses a year, and that's enough to make 1,000. So here's what I said. This is what I was looking for. I knew because of my time at Keller that if I put 25 people in on my tier one, my personally enroll 25 people as fast as possible. And when I say as fast as possible, I mean 3, 6, or 12 months, right? Say in a year's time. That's 2 agents a month, personally enrolled, right? 25 agents. I knew that if I got 25 agents on my front line, personally enrolled, in a relatively short period of time, and these agents were selling a couple houses a year, that I could be able to show revenue share checks that would start growing month by month. And the agents would see it. And they would have belief, wow, I'd like to get a check like that. And so those 25 in time, I found would bring on 50 between them, not each, but total. Those 25 would bring on 50. It would almost double each level. And those 50 would bring on 100. And those 100 bring on 200. And I said, I think it would take me 3 years to get to 500 agents to do that. Well, it turns out that it happened a whole lot faster because my first year, my wife and I joined EXP in 2016, right? That was our first year. So we've completed 10 years now. And I enrolled 20 agents my first year. 22. I enrolled 22 agents my first year. I did not hit my goal. My goal was 24. I only had 22. And out of those 22 agents I personally enrolled, 4 of them were builders. 4 of them started building and sponsoring and recruiting. And by the end of that first year, I actually had 700 agents, because those 25 agents that I personally enrolled, those 22 that I enrolled, they had enrolled just over 100 agents, and those 100 had referred like 150. And so it was happening a lot quicker than I thought, but it took showing the presentation all the way through. I had a lot of people that would say, I've talked to people and they're not interested. I said, talking doesn't do it. I have a very short, I think it's 13 slide presentation that I'm more than happy to share with you. And I just use that for everybody. I don't care if they sell one house or 100 houses or 1,000 houses. I just want to provide them with the basic information to create interest and curiosity, or to find a pain point or a need, want, or desire, some sort of pain point that we can fix. And so I don't even count showing this to someone if they do not have, if they don't sit down with me and see the whole thing, or by Zoom, because Zoom, after COVID, we did a lot of things in Zoom, and I've recruited thousands of people through Zoom, through doing Zoom meetings for different people, just like doing things like this here for James. And so what happened was, my revenue share started growing pretty massively. And I mean, for a long time, I think it's 7 or 8 years that I've been, our revenue share averages in excess of $100,000 a week. I mean, to think about that, that's a significant income. Not a lot of people can't relate to that, And I tell people I'm adjusting myself, because I never made that kind of money. But it's incredible and big. And last year, I think at Cabo, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had said my numbers were 1,135. I had showed the presentation to 1,000 agents. 10, my goal was to show it to 10 a month, so 100 a year. And in 10 years, I'd shown it to 1,000 agents. And from those 1,000, I had 200 join, 20%, pretty incredible. 200 join. 100 of those quit. So I had 100 that were left. And those 100, 35 of them, right now, 38 of them are selling houses, are FLQA. So I have 38 FLQAs. I've got 101 FLAs, and I'm constantly looking to enroll 2 agents a month, 1 or 2 agents a month all the time. And I talk to people, do you think that's possible? Who do you know that I can talk to? If I get someone who comes aboard, I say, well, who do you know that I can talk to for you? Let me do the talking. I know what to say. I know what to answer. They'll stump you. You don't have to be the shell answer man and know everything. If you know where to get the information, let me talk to them for you. I'm more than happy to do that. I love doing that. It's a fun thing watching someone get it and understand it and spark. And so, here's another thing I would tell people. I would use this story as well. I said, how much money would it take you to retire? Just, humor me, just follow me, right? And so I wrote this down. Let's say that you wanted to make, and this, you may not make that much now, I don't know, but $200,000 a year, passive income, $200,000 a year. I would say, could you live on $200,000 a year? I mean, think about that. Think right now. Could you live on $200,000 a year? That's $16,000 a month. It's about $4,000 a week. Can you live on $4,000 a week? Well, if you can, then $200,000 in passive income would give you the option of retiring if you want to. Retire doesn't mean you sit at home petting the cat, watching TV till there's 13 channels of snow. You don't have to do that, right? You can do what you want, when you want, for as long as you want, wherever you want, if you have that cash flow. And so I would say, are you ready? I said, in order to make $200,000 a year in passive income, you need to have $4 million invested that's earning 5%. 4 million at 5% will get you 200,000 gross. 200,000, right? Now, in order to have the 4 million, you have to make 6.67 million pre-tax, so that you're paying at that level, you're paying 40% tax overall, federal and state, 40%. which means you need to gross 8 million if you're on an 80-20 split. So you've got to gross $8 million. You pay 20% over so many years, right? And to get that, if you just grossed $100,000 a year in real estate, it would take you 83 years to get that put aside. If you were grossing 200,000 a year and you could invest 200,000, it would take you just 41 years of putting 200,000 aside to get to 4 million. If you invest 300,000 a year, it'd take you 28 years. In other words, there's a very slim chance that any person is going to do that. Very few small percentage are going to do that. But I said, just imagine this thought with EXP. Let's say over a 3-year period, instead of taking 20, 40, or 80 years to put that money aside, why don't you just sponsor in 3 years 30 agents that are selling some houses? 30, 10 a year for 3 years, 10 a year. So you got 30. Well, those 30 in time will refer 60. And those 60 in time will refer 120. That is 210 agents in your first 3 levels in 3 years. If they're selling in your market 3 houses a year or more, you're going to make over $200,000 a year in revenue share. Which one is simple? 40 years trying to invest $200,000 a year after tax, after expenses, after insurance, food, healthcare, housing, cars, kids, and still be able to have that money to invest. It's so much simpler, easier to do it with EXP. You only need about 200 agents and anywhere on the first 3 levels. Gene Fredrick makes several $1 million a year just from what Jen and I have done because of the revenue share program. You never know who is coming aboard. There was so many people say, why are you talking to this person? They hardly sell at all. I said, well, I don't know who they know. I don't know who they're related to. I don't know who they're going to put me in touch with. That's why I like being able to say, I have a guy that was my landlord in Texas when I first got started in EXP. We had moved to Texas for some other business reason, and we were renting a house in the Dallas area, Plano, Texas. And the guy who my landlord, he said, what do you do for a living? You never go to work. You have quite a nice lifestyle. What is it that you do? My neighbors, because he lived in the house before, he bought another one, then he rented out the one he used to live in. My neighbors say you never go to work. You're always having people over throughout the day. There's people coming and going, and they kind of think you're a drug dealer. And I said, no, I'll be happy to show you what I do. He was a soccer coach. Okay. He was making $80,000 a year as a soccer coach, coaching kids 8 to 10 years old. Right. So he spent his nights and weekends with 8 to 10-year-olds. And so I showed him my presentation. I think one of you just put that in the chat. So you have a link to it, I believe. If not, I'll make sure you have a link. And he said, after I showed him the presentation, start to finish, he said, do you mean if I got my real estate license, I could do that? What you do? And I said, yeah. And he said, and you would help me, teach me, and coach me how to do that? Because he was a coach. He knew how important that was. And I said, yes, absolutely. And he said, and you're the number 1 person in the company in the world? I said, yes. And he said, I'd be foolish not to. Why would I not want to do that? He said he wanted to make 200,000, right? Well, so we got started, and you know what he did? He went through his social media and he found out that there were several hundred soccer moms that were real estate agents in that soccer league. I mean, their kids were in the soccer league. So he said those agents won't want to, because he's never sold a house. Think about that. He's got into real estate just to recruit, actually, because he wanted passive income. And he saw what we were making. He saw our checks. So he said, that's doable. I can do that. If you can do it, you can teach me. I can do the work. His first month, he set up 40 presentations with me, 2-on-1s, 40. It was like one every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 in a day. And he would pick me up and he would drive me there and we would show the presentation and we would go home. By the end of his first year, and he was 7 months with us, he had personally um, enrolled over 20. He'd 3 a month. He had over 20 agents personally enrolled by the end of that first year, and today he has over 2,000 agents. 2,000 agents, and all he ever did was get the people to talk to me. And he would say, "How long have you been in real estate? What company were you with before? What's your exit plan? Do you how much what would happen to your income if you stop selling houses, or when you stop? What do you have an exit plan? How much longer do you think you're going to be in real estate? Do you still love it as much as you did day one?" And all I said, what you're looking for is agents who are open-minded enough to take a look, to listen, to hear. And nowadays, I found that there's a lot of people say, "Oh, I know all about EXP." I said, you must not, because you're not with EXP. If you knew all about EXP, you would be at EXP, because you haven't seen EXP 2.0, you know? And they go, "What?" I said, "Yeah, we've really made it easier and quicker to make more money, faster, quicker, longer, that you can be able to." I mean, can you imagine making an extra 6 figures? Well, all you to make an extra 6 figures, as simple as this is, you enroll 10 who all get 10, 10 who get 10. Just teach that basic concept. Do you think in your real estate career, I'm not talking this month or today, that you can find 10 individuals in real estate that have not been dropped on their head repeatedly as a child and understand what we're all about? Do you think it's possible that there's 10 people in the world that you can find? Well, of course. And do you think they can find 10 somehow, by a miracle, find 10, making it to be just a joke? You can get 10. If they each get 10, that's $100,000 a year residual income, which is more money than the average real estate agent makes working full time. Hello, it's almost unbelievable to those people, because most agents don't make 100,000 net. Most agents don't even gross 100,000, quite frankly. And so I was always looking for those who are looking for us. So I have this 3-foot rule that I would suggest that you do the same thing. Anybody that comes within 3 feet, I stick my hand out and I said, "Hi, my name's Rob. I'm relatively new to the area. Are you from here?" And they look at me like, I'm either the creature from the Black Lagoon, or they are happy to talk to someone. I don't know. Right? But it depends on their energy. If their energy's weird, it's like, run away, leave them alone. Sorry, pardon me. But I would say, are you from here? Yeah. How long have you lived here? No kidding. What do you do? What do you do for work, for living? Really? How long have you been doing that? And I say, are you still as excited about that as the first day you ever got your license or your graduation papers, or what it is you have to get to do what you do? Are you still, or does it seem like it's just a job? It's not fun. It's not the same thing what you thought. And I just hear what they have to say, and I say, do you consider yourself a success at doing what you're doing? And he says, "Well, why do you say that?" And I said, "Well, the reason is because I'm in the real estate industry, and I'm always looking to expand with good quality, talented people. And I find that if I talk to a super successful person, they're going to be able to, most super successful people know a lawyer, an accountant, a doctor, a landscaper, a house cleaner, and a real estate agent." And I go, "Okay." And right now I'm looking for really good quality, talented real estate agents. And if you're successful, what I found was the more successful the person was, the more successful the realtors were that they referred to me. So I said, like a homeless person is going to refer me a homeless real estate agent, and I'd rather not talk to one of them. Too much work, right? So what I'm just looking for um, is a referral so that I don't have to make cold calls. I can be able to call. I met Sam, and Sam referred Julie to me. He says, "Well, Julie's a really great real estate agent, blah, blah." So I can be able to say, "Well, you know what? Would you mind if I call Julie and tell her, that you said she's the bomb? She's really good in real estate." And he would say, "Yeah, no problem at all. She's really great." I said, "Okay, she'll appreciate the call. Super." So I called Julie. I said, "Julie, you don't know me. My name's Rob, but your friend Stan, if that's his name, I can't remember. Your friend says that you're pretty awesome in real estate. I'm relatively new to the area. I would love to talk to you about real estate. Are you open to a discussion about the real estate world?" Now, that agent is going to assume that I'm talking about buying a house or investing, but I'm talking about, I really want to talk to them about real estate and their real estate world and career. You don't have to tell them, they can assume anything they want. So then when I get together with them for coffee, I start asking them all these questions that I was telling you about. And I've got a list of probably 100 different sound bites of things that I say to people to see if I can find a need, want, or desire or a pain point in their real estate world, something they're missing, right? So that I can call them back and I say, "You know what? The other day when we got together and talked and I asked you this question, you said blah, blah, blah." I said, "Was that really true or were you just passing gas?" Right? Because I want them to, don't take themselves so seriously, you know, and they would say, "No, I'm really serious about that." And I said, "Well, I think I've run across something that could address that issue for you. I really think it could make a difference. Can we have a coffee again?" Yeah. If the energy was right, they're going to say yes. It's as simple as that. I've never changed. I've never done different things, but I'm always talking with somebody that gets together. And follow up, I even need to work on that, staying in touch with people, because I have a lot of people now, because kind of gets what happens. We have a back office, and it tells you how many agents you've got personally enrolled, how many are on the different levels, and all that stuff, right? Well, I've got on my level, I've got just shy of 18,000 agents in my first 7 levels right now, just shy of 18,000 agents. Huh. But now the report shows how many agents you have through 15 levels. That's a new thing. It just started coming out. And I have 67,000 agents in my first 15 levels. 67,000. So it's a good chance if somebody's with EXP, they're part of my 67,000. Good chance. And so what I found is, as I'm at different events and different places, I'll see someone, "Oh, hey, I'm glad you joined EXP. Yay, we talked a couple years ago." He said, "Yeah, you are the one that opened my mind. You're the person that I started thinking about it." And I said, "Well, why didn't you call me? I mean, why didn't you call me instead of that turkey?" No, I'm just kidding. And why, what? But I did say, "Why didn't you call me?" And he says, "You know what? Because I was with someone else and we got talking to it, and I just didn't think to call you. You didn't think to call." That's because of my fault not staying in touch with those people. I could probably have several hundred agents personally enrolled if I'd followed up. And back then, I was a little bit, I would tell them even, "I'm not going to follow up." I wouldn't tell them that. I said, "I don't have time. I'm only looking for the people who are looking for me who want to go now. I need to get this thing done. I've got a 3-year deal to get it done. If you're going to take longer than that to decide to join, I'm not going to call you. You'll have to call me." Right? In other words, I don't need you. I want you. I'd love to have you. I'd love to work with you, but I don't need you. Don't think that I do. Okay. Believe it or not, you need me, or you need EXP, someone who's really doing it. And it does make a difference who your sponsor is. I will tell you that. There's no question about it. If you are, do you have editing capability? If you have a shitty sponsor, right, then it's just not the same thing as someone who's saying, "Listen, I can build this thing big for you. Let's go. Let's go arm in arm and make this thing happen." You don't even have to go be there. If you'll just send me a constant flow of people, I'll talk to them. I'll become your biggest, highest non-paid employee you've ever had. I will make you wealthy if you will let me. I've never quit on anybody. I've had people quit on me. I've had people quit on themselves. I've got 8 people personally enrolled. I believe it's 8 that all have several thousand agents on their team, on their revenue share team. 8 of them. And those people are making serious high 6-figure and 7-figure revenue share, right? So I have a track record. And if I show someone, and here's the shocking thing, James will laugh at this. People still tell me no. Me. Hello, what is wrong with you? I mean, I'm one of the highest paid real estate agents in the United States. And and it's all residual, and it passes to my estate tax free. I can will it to my kids, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I make more in a week than most agents make all year. And you don't want to know what I know? That's insane. You just want to work. You want to be in that work until you die program, I guess. That's what's good, because in real estate, you can work right up until you die, especially in Arizona in 110-degree vacant open house you're doing, right? It happens. So you think about that. It's not your fault that some people say no. Well, it could be. I mean, if your attitude is wrong, or you don't, bathe regularly or something like that, and you're kind of repelling people, you don't want to do that. You want to make things as nice and as fresh as you can. But you want to instill faith and belief in someone. If you can't instill faith or belief, then you get someone to show the presentation for you who has the faith and the belief and the strength to say, this is the best thing ever. We have the deal. There's nothing you can do that will pay more. I've looked at all these other different pay plans of these copycat companies, and they don't have levels 6 and 7. I will tell you, I have almost 7,000 agents on my 7th level. I've got over 6,000, I think it's 6,000 on my 6th level. So, I mean, that's 12 or 13,000 agents that don't care how big you are in another company, you don't get paid on. And if you average $1,000 per agent on level 6 and level 7, that's potential $13 million just from level 6 and 7. I would just take that. I mean, think about it. So they say, well, no, I like this other company. They do this, or they give me a coffee card so I get free lattes on Thursdays. I think that's really great. Or they got a little office. I say, you don't need an office. Go out there and talk to people, meet and greet, do an open house, do everything you possibly can to do 10 listing presentations and 10 agent presentations. And so I will give you just a short little quick thing to think about when I tell people, understand the value of personally enrolling. I have personally enrolled an average of 20 agents a year for 10 years. That's 200 agents that I have personally enrolled over the last 10 years. Let's say that you personally sold 20 houses at 450,000. Let's make it 500,000 so it's easier to do the math. You do 20 houses, and I sponsored 20 agents, and you sold 20 houses. At 500,000, the average commission is around 15 grand if you're at 3%. You're going to have some expenses, overhead, what you pay to the company. Let's say that you net 10 grand a closing. So let's say you net $200,000, right? 200,000, because you've sold 20 houses at 500,000. You're averaging 10,000, 20, it's 200,000 for 10 years. That's 2 million. You made $2 million over the last 10 years. That's pretty good. Now, I did sponsoring agents. I did whatever it took to get 20, and I've averaged at least 20. My goal is always 24, but I seem to get 22 or 23. I just can't. One of these times I'm going to get 24, but it's always 20. And over the last 10 years, we've received over $40 million from revenue share. And over the next 20 years, assuming things stay no bigger, just the same as where they are, that's another $100 million that's coming in from what we've done in the past that we're getting paid on today and future. The difference is you pulled in 2 million, we pulled in over 100 million. Now, do you think I want to learn how to do what you do, or should you learn how to do what I do? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. I'll take door number 2, thank you very much. Even if it's hard to do. See, well, I don't like doing that. I said, so what? I didn't say you have to like it. It is the best possible way to make residual income passive, to give you financial independence and freedom so that my wife and I, have complete control over time and money. Time and money. You can make a lot of money selling real estate. Great. Some people do. Most of them don't, but you can. But you got to give up most of your life to do that. I had a real estate agent that we met, my wife and I, we can't help ourselves. We pop into open houses. We see an open house. We want to see what's inside it. Most of the time, there's a real estate agent. And we like to walk in and say, hey, how you doing? Yeah, we're agents. How's the market? What's like? Tell us about the house. It's really great. And you're with who? Okay, cool. How long you been with them? Blah, blah, blah. Do you do a lot of open houses? We like to see the people who are active in the market, and we just get to talk. We don't say hardly anything. And then one of the things that we do is, we have remodeled a house recently. The house that we live in is pretty big, major remodel. We bought the house for $710,000. The remodeling cost of remodeling the house was 2.1 million. So we're in it just shy of 3 million. So we would say to the agent, you want to see what a $2 million renovation looks like? Because this house you're in is going to need some renovation. Won't need 2 million. But if they have the right energy, if they have the energy, we like them and they're seeing them, we say, you know what? We'd love to have you over to the house. How about are you okay? When we've got a plethora of wine. If you like to come over, have a glass of wine, some cheese, and we'll just talk more about real estate. Yeah, okay, great. We'll give you a tour of our house. We're very proud of it. Someday you may get to sell it. Who knows? And are you interested in doing that? And we get 2 or 3 people a week that we get to talk to, and we don't even bring up EXP. We just talk about what's going on, and we just live by example, the lifestyle, and we'll ask them those questions. And if they have any response or interest, or they start asking me questions, I say, you know what? I'd love to get into that because it's really kind of exciting for me. Not that I want you to change. Trust me, I don't want to recruit you. You're thinking about that. I don't want to. I just want you to know what's there so you can make a really, really good decision. So when you change companies, which you will someday, because most real estate agents do, we want to be the person you call. And we do that 2 or 3 times a week. And we're just talking to people all the time. Every chance we get. I don't stop doing it now. And I have 2 chiropractors that I've enrolled that I started talking to about a passive income and lifestyle. And they're medical doctors, right? And this one lady says, well, man, I don't know that I have time. I said, I'd love to teach you what I do. She's not licensed. I got together, I showed her this. I said, I'll work with her teacher. She's been with you 5 years now. She got her license. Last year, for the first time, part-time in real estate, she made more money than she did full-time as a chiropractor. And now because she says, I don't have time to show houses. I said, we'll partner you up with someone, doesn't matter. You've got leads, people, you have hundreds of people that know, like, and trust you. You can say that you're part of a team and they're going to be $1 million plus house. Wow. Okay, cool. And we have a team of people that can help that. Let's get you someone that you like to work with, and you can be able to share the commissions. And we started that way slowly. And then I said, if you ever run into a real estate agent that wants to talk about this, send them my way. I'll call them and talk to them. And so now she's got revenue share coming in, $20,000, $30,000 coming in, not a month, but a year in revenue share. She made 6 figures last year in real estate. And I think 25 or 30,000 of it was rev share. And all of a sudden she's talking real estate now. But she was not a realtor when I talked to her. She was not an agent. I've converted quite a few people. I have another guy who's a corporate guy who's never sold a house, who's got 2,500 or 3,000 people on his team because he said, my why is big enough. I want out. I want freedom. I want time. He was in Texas. He's now bought his dream home in the Colorado Rockies. And it's just exciting what can happen if you believe in the people more than they believe in themselves. And I really believe in James. When I saw he and his wife talking, and I heard you, I believe in Phoenix, but I think also in Cabo. I believe. I could be wrong.
It was.
I was massively impressed. I go, man, here's a guy. That's what you want. You want a guy or a gal that has massy energy. That's what you want. I want massy energy. That person is going to be successful at whatever they set their mind to. You just hope they set your mind to doing it with you. And I'll leave you with that. I hope, James, that's what you're looking for.